Most people work for a living, leaders work for a purpose. A worker asks for instructions, a leader creates direction. Stop waiting to be told what to do. Start becoming who others want to follow. When people step into their daily routines, most of them think in terms of tasks. They focus on what needs to be checked off, what must be completed, and what will help them survive another day. This mindset is understandable. It's how many of us are trained. Schools teach us to follow instructions. Jobs train us to deliver outputs. Society rewards finishing tasks quickly, even if we never ask ourselves why those tasks matter in the first place. But this difference between doing tasks and understanding purpose is the line that separates a worker from a leader. A worker moves through life with a list. A leader moves through life with a vision. When you think like a worker, your energy goes into completing whatever is placed in front of you. When you think like a leader, your energy goes into moving towards something bigger than yourself. Workers think about what to do next. Leaders think about why the next thing exists at all, and that shift from what to why transforms not just how you work, but how you show up in the world. Purpose gives meaning to action. Tasks without purpose feel heavy, repetitive, and draining. People get tired not because they work too much, but because they work without meaning. When you think like a leader, purpose becomes the fuel behind every action. Suddenly, even difficult tasks feel different. They feel like steps forward. They feel like part of something. They feel connected to that inner sense of direction that leaders hold on to. Purpose also outlasts motivation. Workers rely on motivation to get through the day, and motivation isn't consistent. It rises and falls. It depends on mood, environment, and convenience. But purpose doesn't depend on how you feel. Purpose is stable. When you think like a leader, you don't wake up asking whether you feel like working. You wake up remembering why you started in the first place. Another major difference is that workers wait for purpose to be given to them, while leaders create it for themselves. Workers ask, "What do you want me to do?" Leaders ask, "What impact are we trying to make?" Workers depend on direction. Leaders depend on intention. With purpose comes initiative. With purpose comes clarity. With purpose comes action that doesn't need supervision. Purpose is what allows leaders to think long term. A worker's focus usually ends with the task in front of them. A leader's focus stretches far beyond the present moment. Leaders don't just think about what a task accomplishes. They think about how each decision shapes the future. They think about who it affects, why it matters, and what it leads to. When you think like a leader, you're not just completing a job, you're shaping a vision. There is also a deeper emotional difference. Workers want to finish, leaders want to contribute. Workers are satisfied with completion, leaders are driven by meaning. Workers ask, "Is it done?" Leaders ask, "Does it matter?" A leader's mind isn't trapped in the mechanics of work, it's anchored in the significance of work. The effort becomes more than effort, it becomes impact. Purpose also strengthens resilience. When challenges come, and they always do, workers feel pressure because their focus is solely on the task. If the task fails, their sense of accomplishment collapses. Leaders, on the other hand, stay steady because their purpose is bigger than a single outcome. Purpose allows them to adapt, shift, and try again without losing momentum. It becomes easier to stand up after a setback because the mission stays intact. Purpose turns ordinary people into leaders, not because it gives them authority, but because it gives them direction. And when someone has direction, others naturally follow. People don't follow tasks, they follow purpose, they follow clarity, they follow someone who knows why they are moving even when the path isn't perfect. Purpose is not found in instructions, it is found in intention. That is why workers look for the next task, but leaders look for the next reason. Most people begin their work by focusing on execution. They want to know what steps to take, what tools to use, and what processes to follow. While execution matters, it is not where leadership begins. Leadership starts long before action. Leadership begins with vision. Vision is the ability to imagine what doesn't exist yet, to see beyond the current limitations, and to form a picture of a future that others cannot see. When you think like a worker, you wait for instructions. When you think like a leader, you create direction. Execution without vision leads to movement without meaning. People end up working hard but going nowhere. They become efficient at completing tasks that may not contribute to anything larger. This is why some individuals spend years working diligently yet never feel fulfilled. They were executing, not imagining. They were completing steps, not creating destinations. Leaders understand that execution is only powerful when it is guided by a clear vision. Vision provides context. It gives every action a place within something bigger. A worker sees a task as a job to finish. A leader sees a task as a brick in a structure they are building. The brick itself might not seem significant, but when you know you're building a tower, every brick matters. Vision transforms ordinary tasks into meaningful contributions. It changes how you work, how you decide, and how you endure challenges. A worker's mindset focuses on the present. A leader's mindset stretches into the future. Workers think, what do I need to do today? Leaders think, what future am I trying to create? With this mindset, leaders act with intention rather than habit. They make decisions not just for immediate convenience, but for long-term progress. Their thinking operates on a wider timeline, one that connects today's actions with tomorrow's results. Another defining characteristic of vision is imagination. Workers rely on what already exists. Leaders imagine what could exist. A leader looks at an empty space and sees possibilities. A worker looks at the same space and sees nothing until someone tells them what to do. Leaders are not confined by current realities. They allow their minds to explore, to innovate, to dream. Vision is not fantasy. It is direction. It is the anchor that pulls you forward even when circumstances are unclear. Vision also gives leaders the courage to start before they feel ready. Workers hesitate because they want full clarity before taking action. Leaders move because their vision is strong enough to guide them even in uncertainty. They understand that clarity comes through movement, not before it. They don't wait for the perfect moment because perfection is not the source of progress. Direction is. Thinking with vision requires stepping out of the comfort zone. Execution operates within familiar rules, instructions, and routines. Vision breaks those boundaries. It challenges assumptions. It questions the existing approach. Leaders are willing to disrupt patterns because they see something greater on the other side. Workers preserve what already exists. Leaders build what does not yet exist. Vision also fuels influence. People don't follow instructions, they follow inspiration. A leader with vision naturally becomes a guide. Their clarity gives others confidence. Their direction gives others purpose. When people see someone who knows where they are going, they feel safe to walk beside them. Vision is what gathers people. Execution is what keeps them moving. But without vision, execution feels empty. Another important aspect of vision is ownership. A worker waits for assignments. A leader takes ownership of the future. They don't look around for someone to create the path for them. They take responsibility for imagining the path themselves. This ownership is what makes leaders proactive instead of reactive. Workers respond to circumstances, leaders shape them. Vision also fosters resilience. When the path becomes difficult, only vision keeps a leader moving. Workers slow down or quit when tasks get uncomfortable because they have nothing deeper pulling them forward. Leaders persist because their vision is alive in their minds. It is bigger than the obstacles. It is stronger than the setbacks. When you can see a future worth reaching, no challenge feels final. Vision before execution is not about ignoring action. It is about ensuring that action serves a purpose. When you think like a leader, you start by imagining the outcome, then you work backward to build it. Execution becomes a strategy, not a routine. Work becomes meaningful, not mechanical. And leadership becomes possible because you are guided not by tasks, but by the future you can see long before anyone else does. Responsibility is one of the core differences between someone who thinks like a leader and someone who thinks like a worker. Workers often look at responsibility as something to avoid because responsibility feels heavy. It carries pressure. It brings accountability. It forces a person to stand in front of their actions with honesty. For many, it is easier to point outward than inward. Blame is simpler. Blame protects ego. Blame allows a person to escape the discomfort of reflection, but leadership requires the opposite. Leadership begins the moment you stop blaming and start owning. Blame is reactive, responsibility is intentional. When something goes wrong, a worker's instinct is to find where the fault lies beyond themselves. They might blame the situation, the instructions, the tools, the people around them, or the lack of resources. They look outward for reasons to justify why the outcome failed. This mindset keeps them stuck because blame creates a cycle of avoidance. If every problem is caused by someone else, then nothing ever changes within. A leader thinks differently. A leader looks at the same situation and asks, "What could I have done better?" This question is not about guilt, it is about growth. Leaders understand that taking responsibility is not an admission of weakness, but an act of strength. It means they are willing to look at themselves honestly. It means they are willing to adapt. It means they are willing to grow. Responsibility is not about controlling everything. It is about controlling what you can, your choices, your responses, your effort, and your attitude. When you choose responsibility over blame, you take ownership of your journey. Workers wait for someone to fix things for them. Leaders step forward to fix what they can. Workers feel powerless because they see problems as external forces acting on them. Leaders feel capable because they see challenges as opportunities to shape the outcome. Responsibility shifts your mindset from victim to creator, from passive to active, from controlled to in control. One of the most transformative aspects of responsibility is that it builds trust. People trust leaders who accept their mistakes. People follow those who stand firm even when the results are not perfect. Blame damages trust because it pushes accountability onto others. It creates distance, it creates fear, it creates resentment. Responsibility pulls people closer, it shows humility, it shows maturity. It shows integrity. Leadership is not built on perfection, it is built on honesty. Choosing responsibility also strengthens resilience. When you blame others, your progress depends on forces outside your control. But when you take responsibility, progress becomes something you can influence. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve. You start improving your response to circumstances. This mindset allows leaders to navigate difficulties with stability. They don't crumble under pressure because they understand that growth often comes through challenge. They don't fear failure because they see failure as information, not identity. Workers think responsibility is a burden. Leaders understand responsibility is a privilege. It means you have the power to contribute, to make decisions, to shape outcomes. Responsibility gives you access to influence. When people see someone who consistently owns their actions, they naturally gravitate toward them. They feel confident in their presence, they trust their judgment, they respect their character. Influence does not come from authority, it comes from accountability. Responsibility also fuels improvement. When you stop blaming, you start learning. Every experience becomes a teacher, every setback becomes a lesson, every mistake becomes a stepping stone. Workers repeat the same patterns because blame prevents reflection. Leaders evolve because responsibility encourages reflection. Growth demands that you examine your actions, your habits, and your decisions with honesty. Without responsibility, improvement is impossible. Taking responsibility also requires emotional maturity. It demands humility. It requires the ability to step aside from pride. It forces you to acknowledge that you are not perfect and that you don't need to be. Leaders understand that progress is more important than perfection. They don't fear admitting mistakes because mistakes do not define them. What defines them is their willingness to rise, correct, and continue. In environments where blame dominates, people shrink, they hide their flaws, they avoid risks, they fear judgment. But in environments where responsibility is embraced, people grow, they share ideas. They take initiative, they innovate. Leaders create such environments by modeling responsibility themselves. When a leader stands up and says, "This is on me," they give others permission to be honest, courageous, and accountable. A growth mindset is one of the most defining qualities of a true leader. It is the belief that skills can be developed, abilities can improve, and potential can expand through effort, learning, and persistence. A comfort zone, on the other hand, is a place where nothing new happens. It is predictable, safe, and familiar. Workers tend to stay inside it because it feels secure. Leaders step beyond it because they understand that nothing remarkable grows in safety. The difference between staying the same and becoming more lies in the willingness to grow, even when growth feels uncomfortable. A worker operating from their comfort zone seeks stability above progress. Their decisions are guided by convenience. They prefer familiar routines, predictable outcomes, and tasks they already know how to do. They avoid difficulty because difficulty threatens comfort, but the price of staying comfortable is stagnation. When you avoid challenges, you also avoid the very experiences that shape strength, skill, and confidence. A comfort zone may feel safe, but it silently limits your potential. A leader with a growth mind that embraces discomfort because they see it as an essential ingredient for development. They do not seek challenges out of self-punishment. They seek them because they understand that pressure creates capability. They know that growth requires stretching, trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Leaders are not motivated by ease. They are motivated by possibility. They don't ask, "Is this comfortable?" They ask, "Will this make me better?" That question alone separates stagnation from transformation. A growth mindset transforms how a person sees failure. Workers fear failure because they believe failure exposes weakness. Leaders welcome failure because they believe failure exposes lessons. This shift in perspective changes everything. When you think like a worker, failure feels final. When you think like a leader, failure feels instructional. Leaders understand that every setback carries information that helps them improve, refine, and evolve. They don't define themselves by the difficulty of the journey. They define themselves by their willingness to grow through it. Growth also requires curiosity, and leaders are naturally curious. They ask questions. They seek knowledge. They explore new ideas and perspectives. Workers stop learning once they feel competent. Leaders keep learning even after they become skilled. They understand that mastery is not a destination, but a continuous process. Their curiosity pushes them forward. Their desire to grow keeps them humble. Their willingness to be a student prevents them from becoming complacent. A comfort zone encourages predictability, but leadership demands adaptability. Workers want environments that stay the same. Leaders know that the world changes constantly, and the ability to adapt becomes a strength. A growth mindset teaches leaders to embrace change rather than fear it. Change becomes an opportunity to evolve rather than a threat to stability. Leaders understand that adaptability is not about reacting faster. It's about thinking differently. It's about valuing growth more than familiarity. Another significant difference is how leaders view challenges. Workers avoid them because challenges create pressure. Leaders pursue them because challenges create strength. A leader understands that pressure tests character, builds resilience, and reveals potential. Growth does not happen where everything is easy. Growth happens in the moments that demand more from you, more creativity, more discipline, more patience, and more courage. Leaders are willing to face those moments because they know the person they become is worth the discomfort. A growth mindset also encourages self-belief. Workers doubt themselves when difficulties arise because they assume their abilities are fixed. Leaders believe in their capacity to improve, which gives them the confidence to take risks. This self-belief is not arrogance, it is trust in the process of growth. Leaders don't assume they will get everything right immediately. They assume they will learn everything eventually. That perspective frees them to step forward even when the path is uncertain. Leadership requires stepping into spaces where you are not yet fully ready. A comfort zone never allows that. It keeps you in the realm of what you know. A growth mindset pushes you into the realm of what you could become. Leaders choose this realm not because it is easy, but because it is meaningful. They are willing to be uncomfortable today so they can be stronger tomorrow. They understand that growth is not always pleasant, but it is always worth it. Authority is something a position can give you, but influence is something a person must earn. This is one of the greatest distinctions between a worker and a leader. Workers often believe that leadership comes from a title, a ranking, or a position assigned from above. They think authority is the source of power, but a true leader understands that real power has very little to do with titles and everything to do with influence. Influence is the ability to move people, inspire them, motivate them, and guide them, not because you command them, but because they trust you. Authority can make people listen, but only influence can make people care. A worker relies on instructions to get things done. A leader relies on connection. A worker might say, "Because I said so." A leader inspires people to say, "Because I believe in this." Influence transforms the dynamic from compliance to commitment. People follow authority because they have to. They follow influence because they want to. And the moment people want to follow you, you are no longer simply giving direction. You are building movement. Influence comes from character. People watch how you act under pressure, how you respond to challenges, and how you treat others. They notice consistency, they notice integrity, they notice how you show up when nobody is watching. Authority may give you a moment of respect, but character determines whether that respect grows or disappears. Workers believe authority is enough. Leaders understand that authority without character collapses quickly. Influence grows only when your words and actions align. Influence also requires understanding. Leaders take time to listen. They observe before they speak. They look beyond the surface and try to understand the emotions, motivations, and struggles of the people around them. This understanding allows leaders to connect on a human level, not just a professional one. Workers communicate to give information. Leaders communicate to build connection. Workers talk to finish conversations. Leaders talk to open hearts. Influence grows through empathy, through awareness, through the ability to make people feel seen and valued. Another powerful element of influence is example. Workers wait for someone else to set the standard. Leaders become the standard. They show through their behavior what excellence looks like. They demonstrate the effort, commitment, and discipline they expect from others. Influence is created when people see you living the principles you speak about. When your actions reflect your values, your presence becomes motivating without needing authority. People begin to trust you because you embody what you encourage in others. Authority can be taken away, but influence endures. It survives position changes, career transitions, and shifting environments. People may forget the title you held, but they will remember the inspiration you gave, the encouragement you offered, the confidence you built, and the example you lived. Influence lives in the impact you leave on others. That is why leaders focus on influence rather than authority, because one is temporary and the other is lasting. Influence also encourages growth in others. Workers focus only on their responsibilities. Leaders focus on elevating the people around them. They recognize potential even before others see it. They support others, guide them, and challenge them in ways that help them rise. A leader's influence is measured not by how many people obey them, but by how many people grow because of them. Influence encourages empowerment. It creates future leaders, not just followers. Leaders also understand that influence requires humility. You cannot influence people if you constantly try to prove you are superior to them. Influence comes from being relatable, approachable, and grounded. It comes from showing vulnerability when necessary, admitting mistakes, and being honest about imperfections. Workers fear showing weakness. Leaders use honesty to create connection. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity. Influence grows in those honest spaces where people feel safe to be themselves. Influence requires patience. Authority can demand immediate action, but influence builds gradually. It grows through repeated actions, consistent behavior, and genuine care. Leaders invest time in understanding people, supporting them, guiding them, and helping them believe in their own potential. This investment builds a foundation of trust strong enough to create influence. Once that influence is established, people follow your guidance even when you have no formal authority over them. Workers seek control. Leaders seek impact. Authority tries to push people into movement. Influence pulls them into belief. Authority forces action. Influence inspires it. When you choose influence over authority, you redefine leadership as something deeper than command. You become someone who moves people from within rather than pushing them from behind. Thinking like a leader instead of a worker is not about holding a position, earning a title, or managing people. It is about transforming the way you see yourself, your purpose, and your path. A worker focuses on tasks, but a leader focuses on purpose. A worker looks for instructions, but a leader imagines possibilities. A worker searches for someone to blame, but a leader takes responsibility for growth. A worker stays where it feels safe, but a leader steps into discomfort because they know that is where potential lies. And while a worker depends on authority, a leader builds influence, an influence shaped by character, clarity, and consistency. Leadership is an internal decision before it ever becomes an external role. It begins with the courage to think differently, the willingness to act intentionally, and the strength to carry responsibility with humility. It grows through a commitment to learning, evolving, and rising above limitations. When you shift from a worker's mindset to a leader's mindset, everything changes: your confidence, your direction, your impact, and the way others respond to you. Leadership is not something you wait for. It is something you choose. And once you choose it, you begin to build not just a better career or a better future, but a better version of yourself, one that inspires, empowers, and leads from within.